Hello everyone and welcome to another Top Tips for Archaeology Graduates. Today I'm joined by Harriet. Hi Harriet, how are you?
Hi, I'm very well, thank you, Penny. How are you?
I'm well, thank you so much for making the time this evening to come and chat to us. So Harriet is an associate solicitor. She works for Russell Cooke LLP in southwest London. Harriet, could you tell us a little bit about your role as a solicitor? What are some of the things that you do in your job?
Yeah, so I specialise in property litigation. So that's everything to do with commercial properties. So that could be a small unit on an industrial estate all the way up to a big office block in central London. And I also do a lot of work on residential properties as well. And it's a real mixture of general advisory work and litigation. So that could be, one day it could be a claim for rent arrears, so a debt recovery claim, or the next day it could be a dispute that's come up between freeholders, so the owners of the building, and their leaseholders or their tenants about the maintenance, or if someone wants to do alterations. So that's really sort of a very abridged version of the work that I do, but it's a real mixture of advisory work and litigation work, so going through court proceedings.
So a mixture of, I guess, working in the office, but also some time in courtrooms. Is that true?
Yes, but because of the pandemic, I've not actually been in the courtroom for probably about 18 months, if not longer. Because so the courts all closed over the pandemic, unfortunately, and there was a lot of restricted access. But yes, there is a mixture of court work, and we are lucky enough on occasion to go to the hearings, and then the majority of the time I am based in the office. So
yeah. What are some of the things you enjoy about your role as a solicitor?
So obviously the best thing is the client facing part. We deal with a real mixture of people on a day-to-day basis. It's a really good opportunity for exposure to a range of different industries. So it can be the commercial property industry, finance industry, the sort of private industry, so that's private owners of residential properties. So I really enjoy that aspect because it means it's a real variety of work on a day-to-day basis. And also we've also got a really good department that I work in as well, so that's a really good element that I enjoy. And there's a lot of cross referrals, I suppose is the correct word to use, between my department and other departments in the firm. So there's a really good aspect to getting to know lots of different people, I think, in a job as a solicitor.
Yeah. That's a thing to take away. I think a lot of us really enjoy working with the people that we work with, and I think that's exactly true for a lot of people, the friends you make at work, and having that positive environment around you. Can I ask a slightly more difficult question, which is, what is more challenging about your role? What are some of the things that perhaps you find a little bit more difficult on a day-to-day basis?
So on occasion, it obviously can get extremely busy, and there are times where you as a solicitor you do have to work much longer hours. So that's probably the most challenging thing that some people might find difficult to adapt to, particularly after going from graduate or university sort of hours to longer working hours. That's one of the more difficult things to manage. And personally, this is one of my personal things is that networking is a big thing of being a solicitor, and that can be quite challenging as well. And going to a room full of people that you don't know and you have to engage with them and talk to them, that can be quite a difficult thing to get to grips with at first, and it's a skill to develop. So I think those are the two most challenging things, I think, but they're things that you get used to, and you develop them as a skill, both personally and professionally, I think.
I think that's a really insightful point you've made. Networking, I don't think, is something that comes easily to many people, and it's not something you're born knowing how to do. It's a skill that you have to learn how to do.
It's something you learn from going to networking events and also from your colleagues as well. It's definitely a skill that I don't think you ever really sort of finalize, if that's the right word to use. You continually develop it over your career.
Lifelong learning.
Yes.
So can I ask how you went then from your degree in archaeology through to becoming a solicitor? I know a lot of our students do go into law, and it's quite interesting to hear that story of charting that path.
Yeah, so I did a BA archaeology, just the straight degree and graduated in 2013. So I always had it in the back of my mind, I think, that I was interested in doing law and converting to being a solicitor, but it probably wasn't until I think maybe the second year of my degree that I really made that decision. And I can't remember the exact module that it was now, and it's probably all changed since 2012. But I think it was something to do with archaeology and heritage and preserving archaeology in sort of the changing commercial world with all of the with all these building developments that are popping up all over the country. I think that was the context in which I decided that I wanted to explore the legal route. So when I graduated in July 2013, I then went straight into law school at the College of Law in University of Law, in Guildford, which I think there is also a branch at York on Goodrick.
There is, yeah.
And I did the graduate diploma in law, which is, if you haven't done a law degree, that's the first step that everyone had to do, or I think still has to do, to convert to being a lawyer. And that's basically a year overview of the 7 sort of pillars of law. And then once I completed that, so that was a year, I then went and did what's called the legal practice course, which is, as it sounds, the more practical side of being a solicitor. And again, that's another year, and everyone had to do that regardless of whether you've done a law degree or you've done the conversion. So that's another year's worth. And then by the time, once I completed that, in the course of doing that, I got a job as a paralegal, as a firm, sort of a Southwest regional firm, working in conveyancing, so transactional residential property, buying and selling houses. And I did that for about 8 months. And I then managed to secure a training contract with a firm, another firm in Southwest London, which is a different firm to the one I now work for. And I then trained there for 2 years and qualified in September 2018. So it sounds a very long process when I describe it like that. And I know now that there have been a number of changes to the routes to qualification. So it's worth checking on the Law Society and the Solicitors Regulation Authority website as to what they currently are, because there's been some talk about how the exams have changed, and the training contract is seen as what's called the traditional route, but there's now lots of other options for qualifying. Apprenticeships are a really big thing now, and what's also called the alternative means route. So you can build up sort of a portfolio of work, as I understand it, over probably a longer period of time, but you don't do the traditional training contract. So there's lots of different options, depending on what would suit someone's circumstances, I think.
That's really interesting to know, and we'll put up links to those websites below so that people can go and investigate.
Yeah, and also there's plenty of information just on Google. If you type in how to qualify as a solicitor or route to becoming a solicitor, there's plenty of information just freely available on the internet.
That's great. I have a further question for you. So you studied, you said that it was sort of the commercial world in terms of heritage that got you interested in law. So did you know from the beginning that property law was the area that you wanted to go into, or was that something that came later on?
No, that was definitely something that came later on. When I started doing the law conversion, I found that I was interested in the property law more than the others, and I was definitely better, shall we say, at those modules when I was doing my conversion, and then it sort of went from there. So I didn't actually do what's called a property litigation seat. So when I was doing my training contract, I didn't actually do any property litigation until the very last stages, and now I do it full time. So it's something that I've developed in the last few years, really. But yeah, I was always probably more interested in the land law and the property law modules when I was doing the conversion courses.
So something that you found as you went on, you didn't know sort of from the beginning the area of law that you wanted to
and that can definitely, I know people, and that can definitely change throughout your training contract as well. Some people will say, oh, I definitely want to be a family lawyer, but then in the course of their training, they'll find that there's actually another area of law that they're also really, really interested in. So I think an important point is that you're not fixed to the area of law, or you've not got a fixed idea in your mind of the area that you want to work in. It's important to be adaptable to it, because there's so many different areas beyond the sort of the core areas that we all read about in the news and in the media and everything. There's lots of different options.
Yeah, that's great. So can I ask you, do you draw on anything you learnt, I guess, transferable skills, for example, from your archaeological degree now in your work?
So I think in particular, the research skills are probably the big one that I have. So I really use the ability to look at a lot of complicated information on a daily basis. So for example, when I did archaeology, my degree or my dissertation was on, it was actually on sort of the hunter-gatherer side of things. So that was a lot of very detailed pictures and lots of statistics, and so all of that very small amounts of information, which when you put together is a lot to digest all at once. And I definitely have taken from that how I approach my research when I'm looking at a new case or I'm looking into a new matter that I've been sent. That's something I use on a daily basis, and I've developed over the years my own sort of research pattern and how I go through, for example, a really complicated lease, how I ensure that I capture all the information that's relevant in it. And I definitely think that's come from archaeology and the research skills that we were taught in the first and second years.
Yeah, it's always nice to hear people talk about their dissertations once they've graduated, because it's such a big piece of work that you do over your third year, and it's something special and unique to you. So it's always nice to hear people sort of identify
I think
that.
mine's actually still in York somewhere. I don't think I've got a copy.
It will be. We keep all the dissertations, so we will still have a copy. So to finish off today's interview, can I ask you, what are your top tips then for archaeology graduates now who are perhaps interested in following in your footsteps to becoming a solicitor or working in property law? So
I would definitely say if you're interested in converting to law, to start looking around for work experience, whether that's in a solicitor's firm. If you've got a family friend who's a solicitor, then see if you can, even if it's just for a day, just see if you can shadow them, just to see what it's like in a law firm on a day-to-day basis. Another option that's really good is that there's quite often open hearings at the courts, not so much at the moment because there's still some restrictions on who can go in, but you can, some of the court hearings at the Old Bailey, for example, the criminal courts, they have a public gallery, so you can go and watch a trial if you think you might be interested in criminal law. You can look those up on the courts have got a timetable on their website, so you can look up what's going on in all the courts on each day. So that's a really good way to see some, particularly barristers, to see barristers in action and see what they do, and also just to see how a court works. That's a really good way to do it. And also, as I said, just see if you can get a day's experience in a law firm, whether it's your local firm or a bigger firm. Bigger firms will run graduate training schemes, so you can get onto what's called a vacation scheme, which is usually a week or so's worth of work experience, and you'll go into a firm and they'll probably have a structured routine of what you're going to do for a week, and you'll see how different departments work. So if you're really serious about becoming a solicitor and you want to go down the training contract route or the other routes, then I definitely recommend starting to look into vacation schemes or holiday work experience as a starting point. That's great. It's definitely also a good idea to get a sense of what the job is like, I guess, before you fully commit to a year's training in it. Yeah, so any experience you can get at the earliest opportunity is definitely the way forward, especially if you're straight out of university. Yeah, thank you, Harriet. Thank you. I think that's very sound advice, not just for law, but for many other fields as well. It's been really great to talk to you today, and thank you for your insight into the world of a solicitor. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Join us again next time for more top tips for archaeology graduates.